The NASCAR Cup season has come to an end. Joe Samaniego here, Kobe Lambis from the Podium Finish. Welcome to Grid Live Post Race. We got an exciting show for everyone. We encourage everyone participate in this chat room. We want to hear your thoughts about the NASCAR Cup Series race in Phoenix, as well as the MotoGP race, Grand Prix of Europe this past weekend as well. And of course, we'll start with the big story, and that is the NASCAR Cup Series and the season finale at Phoenix. And the big thing with the Phoenix race, of course, is your 2020 NASCAR Cup Series champion, Chase Elliott. The siren is going off at Dawsonville. It's been a chaotic season, of course, as we all know. A lot going on with the pandemic, the controversy with the playoffs just this past weekend. Just about everything you could think of that could happen has happened this year with NASCAR. But at the end of the day, Chase Elliott is now your champion, and one of the big things we saw, just about every driver drive up to Chase Elliott, congratulate him on winning his first Cup Series champion. Kobe, 5 wins, including now 2 in a row for Chase Elliott. Is Chase ready to take the role as champion and lead the sport starting next year?
Definitely, most definitely, Joe. When you look at everything that Chase Elliott has accomplished this season, I really do believe that he's taken that next step in the next step in his career. Obviously, with the wins, winning back to back, and now he's a NASCAR Cup Series champion. And here's an interesting little statistic that I picked up on earlier in the week. In 1988, his father Bill Elliott won the Winston Cup championship. And also in the same year, the Los Angeles Lakers won the NBA Finals and the Los Angeles Dodgers won the World Series in baseball. And in 2020, crazy how all of this works out. The Lakers won the finals, the Dodgers won the World Series, and Chase Elliott won the championship. And that's really crazy how all that works out. And I really do believe when in terms of taking the role of champion and leading the sport moving forward, when we saw that moment after the race between Chase Elliott and Jimmy Johnson, when they shared a moment, I really do think that was the moment when we saw the passing of the torch. And yes, Adam, saw your comment there on the screen. You were absolutely right.
You are absolutely right, and we encourage all our viewers participate in the chat room. We'd love to feature what you say, what your thoughts. Of course, Adam joined us Saturday on Grid Life post pre-race. He predicted it. Good job on Adam. He'll be on the board for pick a winner, which has to be, of course, really exciting as well. Now, of course, the excitement of today, we saw a dominant car from Chase Elliott all day long, essentially. Was always up front. Never really seemed to have an issue or put a wheel in the wrong place. But the big thing, of course, the one thing where it did come off a little bit of a rough start, he had to start in the back due to failing technical inspection. Started in the back, but he quickly worked his way up front. He got around Joey Logano after a late pit stop under green flag conditions. Logano had a better stop, got ahead using the undercut. Chase Elliott just reeled him in, got around him, never looked back. Now, of course, especially with what we saw at the Truck Series and the Xfinities, we had late yellows in both of those races. A lot of folks were talking about, will there be a late caution? Are we prepared for the late caution? Even Chase Elliott was asking, do we have a plan for the late cautions? But there was no late cautions. In fact, Kobe, did this race surprise you? We only had the stage caution, a competition caution, and a caution for one car hitting the wall early on in the race.
Yes, it was a major surprise. Honestly, I was just waiting for that late race yellow. I was just waiting for it to come out, but it never did. Obviously, it was really interesting race. Pretty clean for the most part. A lot of decent racing, and everybody was just minding their p's and keys. We saw the championship for 1, 2, 3, 4 pretty much all race long. They had their battles, and in the end we crowned Chase Elliott as a champion. And another little statistic to look at, all 3 drivers who won the Daytona Road Course ended up winning the race at Phoenix and the championship. Sheldon Creed, Austin Cindric, and Chase Elliott. I thought that was kind of interesting.
That is a very interesting fact. I mean, to have essentially the 3 winners of the Daytona Road Course went on to win championships, that's really interesting. Of course, this race, I found it very interesting that we didn't have all the crazy yellows like we've seen in other races, particularly Martinsville, Mile Oval. I was anticipating a couple more cautions, especially after what we saw in the Xfinity Truck Series race. But it just worked out, especially with these long runs. It seemed to really favor Chase Elliott. but it also, in a way, favored the Penske drivers as well. We saw Penske drivers, they were really chasing Chase Elliott really hard. Stage two, Brad Keselowski, an aggressive slide right in front of Chase to win stage two. Joey Logano, of course, took stage one, but Brad Keselowski was just slow all day in pit road, just time after time, losing positions, lost positions, got around up to second place. Things may have been different if his pit crew was a little bit faster today. Denny Hamlin was up there in the top four, but just never really seemed to be a contender all day. Car handling just wasn't there. While he, of course, good effort, fourth place finish, it just didn't seem like he was a big threat to Chase Elliott. Even if we had a late caution, which a lot of people were anticipating, do you still think Chase Elliott would have still drove away with this championship?
And with those late race cautions, anything is possible, especially with these wild restarts at Phoenix. We saw in the truck in Xfinity series that those late race restarts were absolutely insane and wild, and it will certainly be easy for somebody to get into Chase Elliott, send him around or get up into the wall or lose a lot of possession. But I do believe this time around, Chase Elliott, he had a bullet today, had a rocket. He was flat out flying out there, especially when he failed inspection twice and had to drop to the rear. He drove right through the field and to the front. And I do believe even if we had a late race caution, Chase Elliott still would have had a fast enough car to win the race and the championship.
I agree. Had there been a late race caution, unless something crazy like a crash involving him, something contact made, picked up some extra damage. If there was a late race caution and he started up front and had a good restart, which I anticipate he would, we will still be talking about him being the champion. He delivered, I think, a championship effort today, and especially this season, 5 wins. I know you don't just get 5 wins just by being lucky in the Cup Series. Those were 5 hard-earned wins, including the road course, the Roval, Martinsville, and now here at Phoenix. Big effort by Chase Elliott and the number 9 Chevrolet team, part of Hendrick Motorsports. Now, of course, we'll have a little bit more NASCAR coverage ahead in the program, but we had a big development in today's MotoGP and especially the MotoGP championship.
Yeah, definitely a big development. You're talking about Chase Elliott earning hard-fought wins. There was a rider in MotoGP who earned a hard-fought first career win today, and Mir came in as the point leader. He didn't have any wins, and we questioned if he was a serious contender for the championship. And all the way from fifth place, he had a flawless race and ended up winning his first career MotoGP win. And this has put the championship within his reach with 2 races remaining in the 2020 MotoGP season. And if he finishes third or better in the next race, he'll secure a championship. Joe, did Mir surprise you today by winning? I'm sure he's been sick of all the questions about are you going to win? Are you going to win? Or are we going to have a winless champion?
He did surprise me. I anticipated, as I did on Pick a Winner, his teammate Rins to take the win. I kept thinking with Mir, he's been consistent. But quite often, particularly, especially now with NASCAR, the current format, I always see where someone's consistent, but they don't seem to put the wins there. They're not really a championship contender. Here he comes from fifth place up to the front, flawless race, really deliver a stunning performance to make the case like, hey, I'm here, I got my win, I'm ready for this championship. And what timing! First career MotoGP win, and it puts him in a real good spot where this next weekend he could have it all wrapped up and have his first championship. That is a clutch performance.
Yeah, definitely a clutch performance. I'm sure Miro is finally glad to get that monkey off his back. Now all he has to do is worry about locking up the championship, or if it has to go down to the final race, it'll just go down to the final race and I'll have to get it there. And MotoGP has seen plenty of surprises. And starting on the first lap, Fabio Quartararo crashed out on the opening lap. Very disappointing for him. Yeah, but he was able to continue and brought it home in 14th. Do you think Fabio cracked under pressure there?
It definitely appeared he cracked under pressure. Of course, he essentially slid out, got back on the bike, did continue to race his way towards the front. But definitely this year, that's been sort of the story of his year. He won the first 2 races, then was just nowhere towards contention. Has crashed out. Has been very inconsistent. Of course, inconsistency seems to be the theme of MotoGP this year. Nobody has been really consistent except Mir, who is currently the points leader. And today, I anticipated with his start, he'll be up there keeping it close to Mir. First lap goes out as he's having a pretty much the biggest, worst race he could have at the worst timing. There's his opponent, Mir, having a flawless race, delivering a big time effort to get a championship. And we all saw after race, Quartaro was just devastated. And I think the momentum has really shifted now.
Yeah, definitely. Momentum has definitely shifted, and with two races left, after the first two races here, it really looked like that Fabio was going to be the rider to beat in 2020. But Mir quietly worked his way up towards the championship points lead, and now that he has the win. As I mentioned, all of the questions of when will you win, when, are we going to have a winless champion, are now gone. And with all of those questions behind him, do you believe that Mir is the clear favorite to win the championship?
I do see him being the favorite to win the championship. The Suzukis are looking fast. A 1-2 finish today. Unless some horrendously bad luck happens to the Suzuki, like failures, I don't see a reason why they can't finish up front again. Of course, the two races ahead, Spain, Portugal, I see that where it's going to be close competition between everybody, especially Quartal. He's going to try to make a rebound. But now, after this race, I feel has the confidence to say, I know how to win a race. I know how to deliver a clutch performance when it matters the most. I mean, if this was some sort of like playoff format and Mir was in a must win situation, this was that race. Prove the doubter wrong. Prove you could go out there and win a race and prove you are worthy to be part of the championship discussion. And he did that today.
Yeah, definitely, definitely, he did do that, and when looking at everything that's happened, I really do believe that Mir is in a great position, but when we're looking at the big grand scheme of things, I mean, I mentioned third place or better, Mir, and then he can become the 2020 MotoGP champion, and in top 15 finishers score points in MotoGP, so a top 10 finish will definitely increase his chances. How does Mir approach the next race, and will he wrap up the championship?
I do see him potentially wrapping up the championship. He has a lot of top five finishes this year. So easily, if he could be in the top three, he has a championship wrapped. If he's not in the top three, he's still in the top five. That is still going to be a lot of points. So especially with Quartaro, Devocioso, Vinales, if they're behind him, they're going to score less points. It just makes it a little bit easier for Mir in that final race. So definitely, I think what's going to happen at this race, Mir, he's going to go out there, do everything he can to be up front as usual. If he could get a win, get a podium, he knows he's going to seal the deal. If he's in the top five, which he has always been in the top five just about most of this year, he knows the pressure is still on Quartaro, Devocioso, Vinales. They're the ones that have to try to catch him. So even if they're in the top five or even a position to win, if he's in the top 10, he's still in a really good, comfortable spot because after next weekend, it's just one race. And again, just stay in the top 10. But as he has shown time and time again this year, if he's in the top five, championship might be over by next weekend. And it will be definitely a surprise champion that I think very few people would have predicted earlier this year.
Yeah, definitely, it would have been a major surprise if you asked me if you think Mir's going to win the championship at the beginning of the season, and I'd probably say probably not. But you know, it's been a surprising season over in MotoGP. A lot of parity, and when I say a lot of parity, I mean a lot of parity. It's definitely been wonderful to see how everything turned out. And I think for Mir heading into the next race, I do believe that the best strategy is just control what you can control and go out there, just try your best. That's all you can really ask for. And if he wraps up the championship next weekend, then great. And if he doesn't, then just go to the finale and take care of your business there. And moving forward, I just think that the best approach here is to just keep doing what you're doing and control everything that falls into your hands. And next weekend with MotoGP, be sure to tune into the Grid Live pre-race show Saturday at noon Eastern time, and Jessica from Paddock Insight will be on the program with us. And next, Joe, gonna talk a little bit more Championship 4 coverage.
More Championship 4 coverage from the NASCAR Cup Series finale. And we encourage everyone in the chat room, especially if you have questions, Want to hear what our thoughts were of the race? We'd love to hear from you, especially this was the first year Phoenix hosted the championship round. Now, 2020 has come to an end for the NASCAR Cup Series and all three major NASCAR series. Of course, all of them ended in Phoenix this year. This season has seen so much for NASCAR with the pandemic. Of course, we've all gone through the pandemic. With everything that happened at Talladega, with Bubba Wallace, how the sport really rallied behind, how the drivers have really embraced this stop, listen, and learn. And then, of course, with everything going on with the season, we had new races, Wednesday events, double headers at Dover. I mean, all sorts of things that. But now, season has ended. Everyone's talking about Chase Elliott, the NASCAR Cup Series champion. Will Chase Elliott winning champion be the most remembered part of 2020?
Well, I'm sure a lot of Chase Elliott fans will be very upset to hear me say this, but yeah, Chase Elliott winning the championship is an incredible feat for him and all of his fans. His family, friends should be really proud of him. But when you're looking at the grand scheme of things, I don't think that will be the top storyline coming out 2020. I think it's going to be the fact that NASCAR has changed so much. You mentioned the Bubba Wallace situation and how and I did mention this on my Twitter page about one storyline that I wanted to note was about NASCAR's effort to promote a more inclusive environment for people who come from all walks of life. And I really do believe that we do have a long way to go there in terms of inclusivity and all of that. But progress was definitely made, and I think that we're going to get better in the future in terms of a diversity standpoint. But I think that the thing that most people will remember from 2020 is, the elephant in the room. We completed the season during a global pandemic, and that's really crazy because this is something that none of us have ever experienced in our lifetimes. And I think that this entire season it's just been really crazy, odd. Everybody's wearing masks. They're not selling hot passes. They can only have a certain amount of fans at the track. Everything is different right now, and I think that 2020 and probably a lot of 2021, we're going to remember these two seasons as being the years that we raced during a global pandemic.
I would agree with you. Racing during a global pandemic. We know if there wasn't a pandemic, Phoenix has had a good history of good sized crowd. Probably would have been another sellout crowd there. And everybody would be going crazy to see Chase Elliott earn his first championship. It's just really unfortunate with the circumstances. Much smaller crowd. We could still hear the crowd there cheering, but it's definitely not the same level as would have been. And I would agree with that 2020 will be most remembered for, unfortunately, the pandemic. We missed just about a month and a half of racing. It wasn't until May we got back going after everything started coming to a stop in early March. Of course, I feel overall, in the grand scheme of things, Chase Elliott will be the storybook ending for the season. The season started off with a scary note. I recall Adam mentioned yesterday on Grid Life pre-race how we were all very concerned about Ryan Newman. So grateful that he was able to walk out of the hospital and continue racing. The pandemic, that was a big game changer. The social unrest that we see in the United States and NASCAR responding as well. NASCAR making essentially the Confederate flag banned at all events, trying to make an effort to be more inclusive. And at the end, Chase Elliott earning his first championship. I feel like that's definitely going to be one of the highlights of 2020. I do think that pandemic, though, especially the lack of fans, the lack of access, is definitely going to be something that a lot of folks are going to remember. 2021, of course, a lot of this uncertainty will continue as well. We do have a schedule. There's still uncertainty. The schedule might have to change depending on what happens with the pandemic. And of course, fan capacity. During the State of the Sport address, Steve had announced, everything is still on track for next year. However, they're still going to be monitoring the situation, especially for the Daytona 500. What's going to be the crowd capacity? Will there be a crowd capacity? A lot of uncertainty for NASCAR. Chase Elliott, he is now the defending champion. A lot of times, a lot of people see the champion as the face of the sport. The other thing a lot of folks will see, can Chase Elliott repeat the next year? Kobe, do you see Chase Elliott being a potential two-time champion, being able to defend it next year?
Yeah, I certainly think that Chase Elliott, as I mentioned, he's taken the next step in his career, and I think that he has finally developed into his own, and he'll certainly be one of the favorites to repeat and win back-to-back Cup Series championships. And another thing that I'm wanting to look at next season, we saw Kyle Busch not perform on the same level that we've seen in recent years. Kyle has had a slight dip in performance, and one of my questions is also, along with Chase Elliott being the favorite to repeat, can we see a bounce back season from Kyle Busch and go out there and win multiple races and advance to the championship for himself next year?
That's a really good question. Will Kyle Busch rebound? We definitely want to hear from everyone in the chat room as well. Do you think Kyle Busch could rebound next year? Do you think Chase Elliott will be in the Final Four next year? One driver I'm a little bit surprised of today was just not a factor at all was Kevin Harvick. We talked about Kevin Harvick, Phoenix being a track where he's really good at, but it was just, again, nowhere inside. Came home seventh place. Of course, that seventh place finish essentially secured him a finishing spot ahead of Antonio Felix da Costa in the grid ranking. We'll get more into that later in the program. But that was a big surprise for me. I do see, especially Alan Gustafson, Chase Elliott, that team, they have really come together this last couple of weeks. And I see them definitely being a favorite next year to repeat, especially in this era of NASCAR. It's really unique. We see a lot of aggressive drivers making moves very aggressively, like Joey Logano, who has pushed and beat his way to a championship a few years ago. Drivers making contact, trying to push somebody out of the way. One of the interesting things today during the broadcast, it was mentioned that how Chase Elliott, instead of answering the question of what would you do to try to win a championship, what would it take? He said he wanted just to go out there and be the fastest out there. He didn't want to be someone to push a driver out of the way, wreck somebody for a championship. A lot of bit different compared to Joey Logano. And a lot of the drivers we're seeing nowadays, they are very aggressive. Is Chase Elliott more a reflection of his father, especially awesome Bill from Dawsonville? Fast cars always, going out there winning races, and he wasn't one of the most aggressive drivers. He was just usually fast car, fast setup, good team, and always winning.
Yeah, I think that's a good comparison there. Chase Elliott been a reflection of his father, Austin Bill from Dawsonville, and last time I checked, they were still blasting the siren in Dawsonville, Georgia, and that siren probably gonna be blasting all night long, and those people have a ton of reason to celebrate. So that first their favorite son, Bill Elliott, and all the success that he's had in NASCAR, and now Chase Elliott winning a championship. It wouldn't surprise me if we still hear that siren up until Monday morning when the sun come up. Yeah, but going back to the question, about Chase Elliott, comparing him to his father Bill, I absolutely think that's correct. There, you have fast car, had the best team today. They hit their marks. The pit crew was perfect, unlike Brad Keselowski's crew today, which I felt like let him down a little bit and lost in some positions. But overall, Chase Elliott was a class act. He did what he had to do. Hendrick Motorsports brought a great Chevrolet and went out there, executed the game plan, won the race, won the championship, and kudos to Chase Elliott.
Big time. Went out there, got to win. For me, it felt like almost does feel like a little bit of a throwback where we saw a driver, fast car, good team, go out there, get the wins. Of course, the playoff format, a lot more different. Consistency isn't exactly there like in the Winston Cup era. But to see Chase Elliott, I feel like he has really shown how mature he is as a race car driver. He's the third youngest Cup Series champion at 24 years old. But I feel like just listening to him, it sounds like he has already the maturity level of a multi-time champion. One of the big things we noticed today too, he was really wanted to share on how Alan Gustafson is now a NASCAR Cup Series champion as a crew chief. Chase multiple times expressed his excitement to see Alan Gustafson get the championship. And then, of course, we even saw Chase, Jimmy Johnson, Rick Hendrick all there congratulating each other. Of course, Jimmy Johnson, final race, he did a Polish victory lap to salute the fans, gave Chase a high five, probably some words of encouragement as well. Is Chase Elliott now the new leader at Hendrick Motorsports?
Yes, he is. Yes, he is. Chase Elliott's come a long way since his rookie season in the NASCAR Cup Series. He's experienced a lot of ups and downs, lots of heartbreaks, lots of second place finishes. until they finally broke through and got that first career victory a couple of years ago at Watkins Glen on the road course. Yeah, and Chase Elliott has really developed into a solid young driver. And like I mentioned, Jimmy Johnson there when he took the Polish victory lap, and when he greeted Chase Elliott there, I felt like that was the passing of the torch there. And Chase Elliott is now the new leader at Hendrick Motorsports. And moving forward, the future at Hendrick Motorsports is incredibly bright, in my opinion. You have Chase Elliott as your team leader. You're seeing one of the most talented dirt drivers I'm sure anyone has ever seen in Kyle Larson joining the organization. And you're still going to have Alex Bowman and William Byron as well. I do think that Hendrick Motorsports definitely setting themselves up for a lot of success as we get into the 2020s.
A lot of success. I do see that, especially Kyle Larson, going to be during the five. Alex Bowman, very good year this year. Could have easily made the final four. Of course, a little bit of a faster car, maybe some luck as well, would have got him in from Martinsville. And then William Byron, Rudy's going to be his crew chief. I think that's going to be a good combination. Get William Byron up to that next level. Now, for speaking about the next level, this was Phoenix Raceway's first time hosting the championship weekend. Of course, the last few years it has all been Homestead. Prior to Homestead, Atlanta. So, especially considering how long Atlanta Homestead has been the season finale. Of course, 2001, New Hampshire was the season finale after what happened on 9/11, delaying the race date there. Overall, do you feel Phoenix delivered as the championship race?
Yeah, I definitely think it delivered. Looking at everything that happened, starting with the truck race, I thought the truck race was pretty calm until the very last restart. Definitely produced an exciting finish, and then I watched the ARCA Menard Series West race as well, and that was really exciting. David Gilliland actually won the race driving the number 4 car, which is typically Haley Deegan's. Yeah, really exciting race out there, and David Gilliland's family comes from the West Coast, and I'm sure that was very exciting for him, especially since he co-owns that team with Bo Lamastis. And in the Xfinity Series, that another really exciting race, and then come down to the final restart. Austin Cindric ended up winning. We didn't really see a lot. We didn't really see a bunch of messy business today on the racetrack. It was mostly clean, but we still saw some great racing. I do think that Phoenix delivered, but considering the situation that is different, everybody's pretty much gotten used to Homestead, Miami Speedway, and since we weren't there this year for the championship round, it didn't feel the same, I must admit. But I do think that Phoenix delivered, and also things are different now, and people feel differently because we're we mentioned earlier in the show, we're living during a pandemic and things are different, and we're not experiencing things in the same way that we're used to experiencing them. But overall, in the grand scheme of things, if Phoenix is going to return as a finale next year, maybe things will be back to a little bit more normal by then. And with 1 year under our belt as a championship race, maybe it'll feel like a championship round for a lot of people, because I saw some people saying on social media that this didn't really feel like a championship race, and how some people were missing Homestead. And also with the championship race, it's going to be interesting. Is it going to be permanently at Phoenix for the foreseeable future, or are we going to rotate it? And also wanted to go back to a point I wanted to mention in the previous question about Alan Gustafson. You mentioned that he's now a NASCAR Cup champion as a crew chief, and that's a big deal for Alan Gustafson, because over the years he's faced a lot of criticism, and people have always questioned, is he the right crew chief for Chase Elliott? And people have been asking, do you think Rick Hendrick should change? And now Alan Gustafson and Rick Hendrick stuck by him, didn't change him and Chase Elliott. Now Alan Gustafson is a champion, and he proved all the doubters wrong. So I think Alan Gustafson should have him a cold one tonight to celebrate.
I agree. Alan Gustafson, of course, we all remember Coca Cola 600. A lot of people were critical about that call to pit when the others stayed out, potentially costing Chase Elliott a win there. Now, the two of them, they have gotten 2 wins back to back. Martinsville, a must win situation, and clearly today, a must win situation. If he didn't get the win, it would have easily been one of the Penske drivers, maybe Hamlin, depending on how things go. Now they're champions. They could go out, enjoy everything that they have done, and that pit crew, fast all day. Last weekend, the Jackman, of course, essentially made the safe move of the race last weekend by going back to the wall, resetting so he didn't get chase a penalty. That was really huge. So overall, I would agree. Phoenix produced some good racing. We saw passes, we saw cars getting around, making passes. Great battle between Brad Keselowski and Chase Elliott during stage two. Did feel like something was missing. Of course, the pandemic, we didn't have the crowd. We didn't have the pageantry of the big pre-race ceremonies that we will see in Phoenix traditionally during the last race of the year. But overall, I feel it did deliver. And especially next year, if things are a bit more normal and we could have a larger crowd, more festivities, I think we could start seeing that missing feeling come back where it does feel more like the big championship. Now, of course, this was also Jimmy Johnson's final race as a full time driver. Fifth place, essentially finished behind the championship four. So that's a good effort for Jimmy Johnson and the team to end on a high note. Of course, it was unfortunate he wasn't able to get a win today or this season. Missed the playoffs. A lot of folks remember he did miss the Brickyard 400. That could have easily been it. But overall, definitely we want to say best wishes to Jimmy Johnson. Of course, he'll be racing Indy cars next year. And of course, depending on how he does, he might be in the grid ranking as an IndyCar driver. And taking a look at the grid ranking for this weekend, Scott McLaughlin, Lewis Hamilton, of course, they both did not race this weekend. So the top two stay unchanged. Those are the two fighting for the grid ranking world championship. Kevin Harvick, with his seventh place finish, he ensures that he finishes ahead of Antonio Felix da Costa. Had Kevin Harvick finished outside the top 10, Antonio Felix da Costa would have moved up around him. Of course, you can see Chase Elliott. He is in the grid ranking as well, a little bit further back, but still the big thing, especially if we see drivers like Max Verstappen have bad races or MotoGP driver Joan Mir have a bad race, he could still move up. But we're getting down to it. We essentially only have MotoGP, Formula One, and World Rally Championship has one race left this season. So definitely grid rankings not over exactly yet, but it's definitely between Scott McLaughlin and Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah, before we end our programs on our post race show, we always like to point out one moment from the weekend that we thought was significant, and we don't have a name for this. So Joe, live on the air, I'm gonna dub this as our grid one shining moment. So Joe, from this weekend, what was your grid one shining moment?
That's really hard. Just one. I definitely would say Chase Elliott, but I also have to say Joan Mir getting his first MotoGP win. To be winless, leading the championship, having people, you got the championship just because everybody else has been inconsistent and you've been good, but you haven't won yet. To go out there and say, okay, I'm starting fifth. I'm going to go out there, lead, dominate, win. And by the way, now with this win, I just got to get third place next weekend, and the championship is mine. That I feel is the shining moment of the weekend. I would say a very close second will be Chase Elliott.
And for me, my one shining moment of the weekend was the send off that Jimmy Johnson got when they were showing all of the sentimental stuff at the beginning of the race. I'm admit I started getting a little teary eyed there because Jimmy Johnson's he's one driver that I watched growing up since I was a little boy. He was one of the first drivers that I started following. One of the first drivers that I knew his name when I started watching NASCAR when I was in elementary school and watching Jimmy Johnson say well not goodbye permanently because he's going to be racing the IndyCar next year, and I'm sure he'll be making some select NASCAR starts over the next few years or so. So it mostly feels like it's see you later, or goodbye for now, because just saying goodbye is so final. And there was one moment that happened after the checkered flag, and apparently NBC missed it, which is such a shame, because in Jimmy Johnson's press conference after the race, he said when he came off the track, following his Polish victory lap, waving to everyone, saying goodbye. Jimmy said that every crew member lined up to give him a high five as he passed by, and I feel like that was definitely one shining moment, but very unfortunate that we missed it on TV. And we definitely want to thank you for watching the Grid Live post race show. Be sure to like, subscribe, and comment. And on Wednesday night, we're going to have Grid Tonight, talk about all the latest news in the motorsports world. Then Thursday, we're going to have Grid Girls, talk about all of the women racing around the world. And then we're going to have a special program for the Mobile One 12 Hours of Sebring, the IMSA season finale. Yeah, find out what's going to happen in DPI, LMP2, GTLM, and GTD. We'll have that premiere on our YouTube channel a little while before the Mobile One 12 Hours of Sebring goes green. And on Saturday, catch the Grid Live pre-race show. We're going to have Formula One and MotoGP, and we're going to find out if Mir can wrap up the MotoGP championship. And be sure to visit our Patreon page as well. We definitely appreciate all of your support, and shout out to our Patreon supporter Colin. Colin, we definitely appreciate you for supporting us, and hopefully we're producing wonderful content that you love watching each and every week. For Joe Samniego, I'm Kobe Lambert from the Podium Finish.net. Have a wonderful night, and we'll see you next time.